expecting it for quite a while. So, yeah, great, great.
Uh, Rob is mentioning Swiss banks. You know, what do you call it there? The Bank of International Settlements. Have you guys heard about them? Do some research. Look them up. The Bank of International Settlements. Well, when it comes to the deep state central banks, um, they're the central banks of central banks, right? But yeah, their entire system is being dismantled slowly but surely. We're going to see how far it goes. And for those of you who saw what the Bank of International Settlements put out the other day as it relates to cryptocurrencies, that should definitely pique your interest. But anyway, we talked about it last week in our crypto room. It was pretty awesome. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the deep state is panicking like never before, even with the financial system. Right? Changes are happening that they can't control. Anyway, you want to learn more, join us on Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Central Time, right here in the Truth Seekers Tavern. I'm going to drop the mic. The floor is open. Any comments, any perspectives to share?
You ever consider recording those rooms, researcher?
They are recorded.
Yay! Thank you.
Yay! Yeah, just check the replays in the tavern. You should see it. If you tap on my profile, I think if you scroll down, it shows you the replays I've done. The title of that room is called Cryptocurrency and Digital Assets 101. But if you go into the tavern replays and scroll back, you'll see them. So yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, it's a weekly room usually for 30 minutes or so. It's not a long room. I'll drop the mic. All right, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Kareen. Who else would like to share? The floor is open. You are rocking with the Truth Seekers in the Tavern. It's Sunday night. Come and join the round table discussion. The SPLC deep state organizations getting exposed. Kevin Warsh nominated for the Federal Reserve, exposing the central bankers' financial system. So things are getting very interesting. I'll drop the mic. The floor is open.
I guess I'm having trouble connecting the ADL to the other one, the Southern whatever. I've lost all the names for it. Poverty, yes.
Southern Poverty Law Center.
So how the hell did the ADL get involved with them? I mean, when did that happen? How did that happen? I mean, isn't that a little mind-blowing?
No, the ADL is pretty much, another targeting wing of the deep state, and the Southern Poverty Law Center was doing similar things, targeting people. You saw how they targeted Charlie Kirk, and the ADL does that all the time too. I mean, they're just targeting people for being, what is it, anti. Well, they're run by the same set of people, Kareem. It's the same criminal syndicate that are setting up both of these organizations. And, the organizations that they don't set up, they infiltrate. Just like they did your government. Right?
Right. Okay, Truth Seekers.
Various groups to come together.
Well, I actually don't know the history on when they started working together. Is it me or is Kareen in the Matrix? I thought she stopped talking. My bad.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, you were in the Matrix for a little bit, I think, Kareen. Go ahead. You're saying something. I thought you stop, yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm just, speechless. I'm trying to, do they have a party and invite everybody in? You know, we're in the dark, we're with the dark forces. Come and join us. And I just can't imagine those disparate groups finding each other and working together. It is blowing my mind a bit. That's all. Um, what is it? Strange bedfellows. Let me put it that way. It's just such an odd pairing, which, it's time for us to call it out and figure out who is with who, how are they helping each other, and what can we do about it.
Researcher checked the link house.
Yes, sir, I'm looking at it. It doesn't look like it's been confirmed, but it looks like some intel sources. Very interesting. This is happening in the background. Game over.
Cool, seem like bird.
So maybe it's time we create it where we can see who's been confirmed to be connected with these dark forces. Because I never would have guessed. If you look back when these organizations were created with the highest ideals and,
Green, I just told you that the criminal syndicate had a hand in creating these organizations. They were not created with the highest ideals. That's what they sold to the people. Meanwhile, they're they're involved in subversive activities. They tell us one thing, but they do another, which is why we have to watch their actions very closely.
Yep. I'm just saying, when I grew up, they were held in very high esteem. That they were ethical. Were just promoted as being one thing. And I guess that's how we know what they're really doing, because you can tell that they call themselves and just go to the opposite, and then you know what they're really doing. Kind of reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. Me too. Reminds you of Alice in Wonderland. Everything's upside down.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about the ADO sometime next week in more detail. I'll make a note of that. But wow, guys, things are getting very interesting. So I'll drop the mic. Let's see who else would like to share. The floor is open. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. Welcome to the Truth Seekers Tavern Lounge. And yes, I've created a thread, so I will drop the link to that up at the top in just a bit. But in the meanwhile, let's pass the mic around. Welcome to the stage, Sam. Welcome, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Bring a few friends into the room. Share the room home.
I would. I would wish my. And they had these wonderful people who were, ethical. We could trust them. That's a good one to look into.
All right. Well, guys, we have a new X22 report that's out tonight. We're gonna dive into the financial report. It's been a while since we gave that one a listen. So I think we'll do the X22 financial report and then maybe Dr. Kirk Elliott's report with LT and then the geopolitical report. What do you guys think?
That sounds good. Perfect.
All right, well, we're going to get that started up in just a bit. And I will add a few more links to tonight's thread. But guys, remember Sundays, I host a few rooms on Sundays at 2 p.m. Central Time. I start off in the ancient history room, and then at 6 p.m. Central Time, I'm in the spiritual development room, and then usually we close out that room and head right over here. So it's been a long day for me. Sunday's news thread is usually a bit light in the interest of the time, but I'm adding some more links for you all. And for those of you who've shared links in the chat, some of them have been into tonight's thread, so thank you all for your sharing. And this is what we do, guys. Crowdsourcing the truth, right? So remember, the Telegram group is also open for links to be shared with the community members as well. Okay, welcome to the stage, Susan. I see Susan here with us too. Anybody want to grab the mic before we start the financial report?
Just want to say hello. It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us, Susan. All right, guys, last call for comments before we start the X22 financial report. All right, if we have no further comments, producer, you're up. Let's get this started. Enjoy the stream, everyone. We'll open up the panel for a little bit right after.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave. This is episode 3891, and today's date is April 26th, 2026. And the title of the episode is He's Using the Same Trick as the Central Bank. Trump makes a move to get his man inside the Fed. Now, it's very interesting. If you're like me and you're getting to that age clogged and overburdened from digestion to metabolism to detoxification, 200,000 bottles sold and has received thousands of Josh put his 25 plus years of experience into ultra. Hey, it's your lucky day because Dr. Josh is running a summer sale at deliver.com/X22. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see everything that they were trying to do to shift the economic system is completely and utterly failing. And everything that they're trying to do to get back control, especially the blue states, it's now being exposed to the world. Remember going back a little bit in time, back to 1913, when the third central bank came into existence, and then a little bit later on, they told everyone, listen, to keep the system running, what we're going to do is we're going to tax only the wealthy. So you don't have to worry about it. It's only the wealthy that are going to be taxed. Nobody else. Don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden, it was the upper middle class, the middle class, lower middle class, and before you knew it, everyone was taxed. So it looks like the D's, they're doing exactly what the central bank did back then. They're creating a wealth tax in the blue states, and within the bill, without approval, it says later on, they could tax everybody. So once again, they're using the same exact strategy. And I think this time around, the people of those states, they're going to start to realize, wait a minute, were we tricked again? And I think they're going to say, yeah, we were. And this is why a lot of people are moving out of these states. And this is going to continue to happen. But every step of the way, you can see that Trump now, where you can see the central bank, the deep state players, were trying to push nations away from the Federal Reserve.
Is it just me?
No, we lost producer's audio. Hi, Dr. Mitch. Welcome, welcome.
Reserve note, the US dollar. Trump now is actually forcing these nations to use the Federal Reserve note and US dollar. Now, is this because he wants to keep the central bank the way it is and he wants everyone to use the Federal Reserve note? No. What he's doing is he's making sure that the United States has the upper hand moving forward. He's making sure that we still are the reserve currency of the world. Now, this doesn't mean that it's still going to be linked to the Federal Reserve. What it means moving forward is that he's going to detach us from the Federal Reserve, but everyone's still going to be holding these blips. And later on, what's going to happen is that this will be transitioned into a US dollar, and which means we will no longer have the Federal Reserve. And I think this is why Trump now is putting his man in place. And yes, is he going to have to make deals? Is he going to have to work with the corrupt Senate the way we have it today? Absolutely. But again, he's looking at the bigger picture. He's looking at this from this point going down the road. He knows he needs his man more inside. He knows he needs him to start working. He knows he needs him to start restructuring and setting everything up the way he wants it, especially bringing down the interest rates. Now, we're going to be talking a lot more about this a little bit later, but first, let's just talk about how Trump now across the world is now shifting everything the deep state and central bankers were trying to do, where they're trying to push everyone away from the Federal Reserve note. You can see at this point in time, he's pushing, especially the Middle Eastern countries, even Russia now, maybe even China, back to the Federal Reserve note. BBC Letter NX put this out and said, U.S. dollar transactions are rising amid the Iran war. The U.S. dollar's share of international payment via SWIFT rose 1.9 points in March to a record 51.1%. Since 2022, this percentage has risen 13 points. By comparison, the euro represents 21% of SWIFT payments, followed by the British pound, Japanese yen, Chinese yuan, and Canadian dollar. The U.S. dollar also covers 89% of all FX trades and 61% of foreign currency debt issuance. Beyond that, it represents 57% of global currency reserves, excluding gold, and 54% of all exporting invoicing worldwide. The world is using more US dollars than ever. And Trump, he had to do this because remember, he needs to reverse everything the deep state players were trying to do. And this is what he's doing across the world. And you can see that it is definitely working. Now, what's very interesting is, like we just mentioned before, as the blue states continually push the agenda of the Green New Scam and what the central bank wants, they're going to be losing businesses. They're going to be losing the people living in their states, and they're going to be moving out of those states and moving to other locations. And what's very interesting about all of this is that at least 10 blue states, they're now pushing a wealth exit tax. So basically, if you decide that you don't want to live there anymore, they're saying, well, if you're going to leave our state right now, we're going to charge you for leaving the state, which means they're in trouble. They're trying to collect the last bit of wealth from you as you exit their state. Peter's saying on PhD, put this out and say, here come the blue state exit taxes. In case you're stuck in a blue state handing half your money to Somali learning centers, they're now coming for the other half. Wall Street Maverick responded to this and said, 10 blue states are pushing wealth tax and exit taxes to squeeze every drop from taxpayers so no learning center goes without. And that's absolutely true. Because remember, if you don't have your tax base and everyone's leaving, businesses are leaving, what do you have left? Nothing. All you have left is the money laundering. There's no one there to pick up the tab. And this is a big problem for them, especially as federal funds are being cut off. So let's see, you're losing businesses, you're losing your tax base, you're losing federal funds. So if people decide to leave, this is another way just to squeeze some more out of you so they can keep their operation working. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that when we look at California, for example, and they have this billionaire tax, on page 26 in this proposal, it explains how the state legislature can convert from a billionaire tax to an everyone tax without voter approval. They can also adjust the tax to be yearly tax, not just a one-time, again, without your approval. Intelligence test for you, if this was meant to just target billionaires, why did they write this? Because again, they're using the same exact strategy as the central bank system. It's the same trick that they've used over and over and over. And you can see at this point in time, nobody is buying this whatsoever. Hopefully the people out in California actually see this. Hope people are pointing this out, saying, look, this is a trap once again. We already went through this. Did you know what popular looks maxing streamer said Gavin Newsom would beat J.D. Vance in the 2020 election because Vance was overweight and Gavin is better looking? Then Vance showed up to a recent interview looking completely transformed. Just weeks after the comment, everyone's pointing to GLP-1 type of drug, the same type of weight loss drug that 31 million Americans are on. But here's the thing, you don't need a prescription or a needle to get those results. This is why I'm obsessed with the particular GLP-1 supplement instead of a pharmaceutical override. It uses plant-based clinical studied ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger controlling signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings without the prescriptions, needles, or the growing list of side effects making headlines. It supports my weight management while protecting my metabolism so I can keep the results for good. To kick off spring, get 51% off only at trimwithx22.com. Every order comes with free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free implementing an exit tax. And that, once again, that is trimwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. Going back to 1913, why are you going to do this again? Look, everyone's leaving the state. Businesses are leaving. People are leaving. They're implementing an exit tax, and now you're believing that they're only going after the billionaires? Actually, isn't this what they want to do to the nation? Let's tax the wealthy? Again, this is another trick by the deep state, by the central bankers, and they keep using it over and over and over, and I don't think at this point in time anyone's really buying this. But think about it. Since Trump is decentralizing the oil across the globe and pretty much setting everything up to actually restructure the Federal Reserve and to remove the Federal Reserve in the end, again, he has his man getting ready to get into that position. Trump, he has to mitigate what is happening out in Iran until everything's said and done. Because you have to remember, to control the oil across the world, when they set up the petrodollar system, what did they have to do? They had to make sure that we didn't drill in the United States. So there was, everyone had, they put into place sacred land. You can't drill here because we got to save, the small little fish or the turtles or the ants that are crossing the road, anything like that. Then they basically made sure that no one got oil from Venezuela. They made it into a criminal country, and they actually created the cartels, the gang members, and they used that across the globe to supply the oil to China. Why would they supply the oil to China? Because again, they needed cheap energy to actually produce the products. Because again, where was everything moving in the end? To China. Russia, they had placed sanctions on Russia. Why? To stop the oil flow. And this is what they did. To control the price out in the Middle East, they needed the fear tax. They needed to control what ships went in and out, how much they paid, and this they used to control the world's oil prices. Trump now is decentralizing all of this. And yes, it's taking a little while because again, there are certain things that are going on in Iran where they don't want to hand over the nuclear dust because that will implicate Obama and Hillary Clinton because again, the uranium isotopes can be traced back. But again, in the end, I do believe Trump is going to win. So what is Trump doing at this point to mitigate all this? Number one, he's putting out positive news because again, news controls the price of oil. And yes, you can see that the deep state players, the central bankers, try to put out bad news via the Iranian proxy army, and Trump actually counters it with good news. And this is going back and forth. And this is why you see the oil prices moving up and down. But the other thing that he decided to do, and Lee Zeldin explains, he says the Trump EPA just unleashed cheaper E10 fuel, resulting in more domestic supply and up to 25 cents a gallon savings. 3,000 plus stations are ready to go, but New York, California, Maryland, Virginia are bizarrely blocking it for their residents. This makes absolutely 0 sense. Let Americans buy gas at less cost. So there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, the E10 fuel, which is 10% of ethanol, that's going to destroy your car. This is why it shouldn't be allowed. But we know why California, New York, Maryland, Virginia, we know why they're blocking this. Because again, they don't want to show that, hey, look, Trump was able to lower the gas prices. They want to keep the gas prices high because, again, their entire mission is to do what? To bring everyone into the green new scam, and they want to convince everyone, look, fuel prices are high because of Trump. But again, in the end, I don't think it's going to work. But like we said before, the E10 fuel, it will not damage the vast majority of cars on the roadway. It has been the standard gasoline blend sold across most of the U.S. for over a decade, and virtually all vehicles manufactured since the early 2000s are fully compatible with it and approved by manufacturers and the EPA. So modern cars, 2000 and newer, they are safe for ethanol. They have no problems. The fuel lines, the injectors, the seals, basically they're all designed to handle this. Now, cars that are older, yes, they might have a problem. They might have a problem with rubber, plastic seals, gaskets, fuel lines, because again, they were not built for this. So once again, you can see they're going to try to use this type of narrative to make you believe there's something wrong. Now, if you look at lawnmowers, boats, chainsaws, motorcycles, generators, yes, they're more prone to the problems. But for everyday use in automobiles that are $2,000 or later, and I think most of the people have cars now that are 2,000 or later, this is not a problem. But again, you can see why the deep state players are going to try to push this, as hard as they possibly can. Now, does this get the best gas mileage compared to pure gasoline? No, it's a little bit less. But again, I think for most people today, because the cars are very, very energy efficient, I don't think people are going to really notice it that much. I don't think people have noticed it at this point, if you really think about it. But you can see why they're pushing back and pushing back very, very hard. And it looks like Trump, he is now putting his man inside the Federal Reserve, and that is Kevin Warsh. And what's very interesting is that the Justice Department dropped its criminal investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Now everyone's going, oh my God, we're not going to find out if it's a criminal. This is ridiculous. What's going on here? Well, it looks like he made a little bit of a deal with Senator Tom Tillis because he vowed to block Trump's Fed Chair confirmation until the Justice Department dropped its investigation into Powell. Because again, why is he so concerned about the investigation into Powell? Because the deep state players, the central bankers, they have people in the Senate, people in the House to protect them. And it looks looks like Tillis is one of those people. Because again, if there's an investigation, people are going to find out that, hey, maybe Powell was skimming off the top. There was a lot of money laundering going on, and people are going to ask a lot of questions. So is the investigation completely halted? No. U.S. Attorney Pirro explains. This morning, the Inspector General for the Federal Reserve has been asked to scrutinize the building cost overruns and the billions of dollars that have been borne by taxpayers. The IG has the authority to hold the Federal Reserve accountable to American taxpayers. I expect a comprehensive report in short order, and I'm confident the outcome will assist in resolving, once and for all, the question that led this office to issue subpoenas. Accordingly, I have directed my office to close our investigation as the IG undertakes this inquiry. Note, however, that I will not hesitate to restart a criminal investigation should the facts warrant doing so. And once again, instead of having the DOJ looking into this, they're having the IG. Now, the IG, yes, might manipulate, they might fake it, but I think Pirro is on top of this, and if she doesn't like what she gets, I do believe that they'll be investigating. Now, think about this. Once Warsh is confirmed and the IG releases the report, Pirro reviews it, maybe she takes a couple of weeks, a month, or whatever, and says, you know something, I don't like this, I want to look into this. All of a sudden, she can go back in and really do an investigation. But we have to see what is the IG actually going to give and what's going to happen with this. But I do believe a lot of information is going to be coming out. We're going to find out where a lot of the money has gone. And I think Powell's going to be in trouble pretty much no matter what. But in the end, Trump is going to get his man inside. And I think Trump wants to get him in sooner than later because, again, the clock is ticking and he needs interest rates to come way, way down to actually push the economy into the stratosphere. And Warsh needs to start looking into the entire Federal Reserve. Remember, there's tens of thousands of PhDs within the Federal Reserve. So he has a lot of work ahead of him because you have to remember these agencies, they've been corrupt for a very, very long time. And you have to remember, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. So this is going to be very, very interesting moving forward. And Trump is letting everyone know that, listen, we need the tariff system. We need the tariff system because, once again, I'm building a parallel economic system to compete against the Federal Reserve, to compete against this system. And basically letting everyone know that the Supreme Court was completely wrong in their ruling. He put this out on Truth. He said the following: people and companies that have taken advantage of our country for decades because of the horrible and ridiculous United States Supreme Court decision on tariffs are now supposed to be given back $159 billion. All they had to do was one little half sentence, that the United States does not have to pay back monies that were already paid, and our country would be $159 billion richer. That's more than most countries are worth. Think of it, just one half sentence, and we would have saved $159 billion. Couldn't they have done that for our nation? President DJT. And they could have. But I do believe Trump, at this point in time, he got what he needed from the Supreme Court. He got the dissent, he got the path, and yes, he's showing the people of this country, look, the Supreme Court, deep state players, the central bankers, they are not for this country. They're actually working as hard as they possibly can against what he's trying to do. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to do what other presidents have done in the past. If you look at Andrew Jackson, if you look at McKinley, if you look at Abraham Lincoln, they all went up against the private central bank system. And basically, they were all attacked one way or another. Most of them had assassination attempts. Some of them were assassinated. Trump is doing the same exact thing. And you can see every single step of the way, what are they trying to do? They're trying to assassinate him because they know where all this is going. They know that his entire mission is to remove the central bank system. And think about what happens when the central bank system is removed. The entire system that they created falls apart. They know this. They lose control over the world, over this country. And this is something they don't want to give up. The entire economic system, the way we know it today, is about to change big time. And it's going to change in a way that no one could ever imagine, because you have to remember, you got to go back, way back in time, to when we had a period of time where we didn't have the central bank system. And And when we didn't have a central bank system, the money held its value. And the economy in this country did very, very well. The economy and the country was very, very wealthy. And I do believe once people start to see this, once people start to experience this, they're going to understand how bad the central bank system is. You see, when you're in their system, it's very hard to see how bad it is until you're outside of their system. And once Trump gives you a glimpse of what it's like to be outside of the central bank system where we're dependent, and when I say outside of the central bank system, I mean you're not paying income tax. I mean the tariff system is paying for those taxes. That the tariff system is paying for government. And Trump is paying back the Federal Reserve and actually giving the currency back its value. This is when people are going to start to realize how bad the central bank is, because when you're in the monkey house, you really don't see that you're in the monkey house. When you're outside of the monkey house, you can see it very, very clearly. And I do believe once people see this, and this is something the central bank doesn't want people to see, once you see it, you're going to understand it. It's almost like Neo stepping outside of the Matrix and seeing the Matrix from the outside. It was very, very easy to see. He could understand it a lot better. The same thing is going to happen with the private central bank system. People are going to understand it a lot better and what it was and how it kept you enslaved. And soon the central bank is going to cease to exist the way we know it today. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth! Hello, truth seekers. So, that was the X22 financial report. Dave is hitting it out of the park as per usual. The central bankers are feeling a lot of pressure with the Federal Reserve System. Jerome's Paul, his investigation, I'm just letting you guys know, it's not going away. Janine Pirro may have dropped it for now or paused it, but I can guarantee that they're going to continue forward. We'll see what happens after Kevin Warsh gets through this hurdle. It looks like some strategic moves are being made. I want to welcome to the stage. We have Lucia, Karen, Sam joining us. The floor is open, guys. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. We have Dr. Kirk Elliott coming up next with LT's report, and this is the Sunday night financial report, so we're going to be hearing from a financial expert on what's going on in the economy. That's coming up next. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Anybody want to chime in? Are you guys ready for the next stream?
Yes, sir. I thought it was just me for a minute till you said something. Yes, sir, we're ready.
Yes, we are. We're here. That was a great report, researcher. I need to start taking notes because there's so much, you know, it would help.
Well, I usually try to leave the panel open for a little bit for post commentary after the streams in case anything stood out to you guys. that you want to discuss before we move on?
Hi, researcher. I think the Fed has to go. In the last report, they mentioned swap lines, which is quite interesting. Why that's still expanding. That appears to be a way of shoring up the US dollar's use and creating more stability. It, the Fed is a private banking cartel that's been in place now for 113 years. Its product, which they can produce out of thin air, has been compounding that whole time. Like like he said, that was the introduction of income tax. Originally for the billionaires, equivalents. Now it's a major form of slavery. In our countries, the tax we pay. I'm not sure whether we can replace it all without having a smaller government. But there's no question in my mind that the financial system is being re-engineered, and I will not cry a tear to see the Federal Reserve and its thousands of PhD economists out of work. So to bring back the creation of the currency into the control of the government and the treasury, I think that is the direction that the Trump administration is taking it. I think that's a positive one. I was just looking up. Gold has been non-monetary gold has been quite a heavy US export over the last 5-6 months. And so it appears that gold is already becoming more of a. So basically, in the global system, the two major reserves are denominated in US, that's the treasuries, and gold, which is really the main competitor. And that gold is becoming the BRICS, the way that they've got around the US sanctions. Interesting stuff. There's big moves in play. But one thing that I'm not hearing is the impacts of the loss of the energy out of the Strait of Hormuz. That strait is still closed. And on Japanese TV,
Well,
they were live streaming.
just real quick on Dr. Paul before you go to the Japanese TV. The Strait of Hormuz. I wasn't really too clear on how the blockade is being enforced. From what I'm now understanding, right? It's the U.S. blockade is on Iranian ports. So any ships going to or from Iranian ports, that's what the U.S. Navy is blocking. Now, let's shift to the IRGC. They're indiscriminately attacking any ships in the strait. So, when you say the strait is still blocked, there are still some definite issues that are preventing free transit through the strait. But there is an economic pressure that is now being put on Iran because they cannot export oil. And that is the major, I think, impact of the U.S. blockade. The U.S. blockade is, they're allowing other ships that that are not going to Iranian ports to pass through the strait. And that's just a little bit on that before you go to what's going on in Japan. But I wanted to just add that for the audience. But Dr. Paul, back to you, sir. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, look, there are two blockades, as I understand it. There's the one imposed outside the Strait of Hormuz by the U.S. military, the Navy, and the one that is effectively been created by the fear of attack by Iranian forces in the Strait. And the fact that the only way to pass through what's happening is just to count the traffic. Is the traffic flowing? And it's still at 10% or less of what it was. The numbers are still very low. 10 ships in the last, was it 7 weeks now? Versus previously 100, 110. So the strait is effectively closed. It's not completely closed. And obviously the Iranians the major traffic is being now interdicted in the outer straits. But ships are not moving really because they're not feeling safe, I presume. And the recent look, the bottom line is that a lot of countries like Australia, like Japan, like most of Asia, rely on this ocean-borne energy. It's sort of like a floating pipeline, and that pipeline has effectively been cut by about 90% now for many weeks, and it's like if you like a floating pipeline which has was still flowing even though the source had been cut off, but the air pocket in supply is only now starting to hit, and that's why I think the Japanese, basically the US supplies from the west coast is what has saved Australia from already crumbling into a heap. And that's why the Japanese TV was live streaming a single tanker coming in from the coast of the US. All our ocean-borne nations are stuck. All Iran has to do is survive and maintain closure of the strait, because ordinary shippers is afraid to travel, and we will pray to the global economy. We will introduce a massive global famine, the lots of which will be biblical. Michael Young was talking about giga famine, so billion people part multi-billion part losses coming within the next year. Because remember, again, there's still food and there's still harvest coming through from the supplies that were already here or in transit here before the interruption. That's one, two, three, the coming to collapses. They won't be able to pay Davis from the lines. You can't print 30. Although the US does produce lies, it does produce a lot of what it needs. It doesn't, so it's relatively secure. But the rest, and especially as it rely on shipborne energy, we're very vulnerable, and we're hanging on that's the biggest story. And the fact that that hasn't been mentioned shows me there's this massive blind spot in play. But what I'm saying is right, and I follow people like Luke Roman, you get a very different perspective of what's going on and or what's important. I think Jamaica, that's just one that you part on. And the caveat that I haven't heard anyone mention is that Iran is not water. It's not an island. It's connected by land to the European and Asian continents. So it has rail lines that go to China. Um, it can export its oil over land in a way that which sort of has been ignored. Um, and even if they don't export any more oil, if they can just keep this strait closed just a little bit longer, even what they've done, I think, is enough to change the total geopolitical landscape. And I haven't heard anyone talking about it. So either my analysis is wrong, but this 20% reduction in global energy, and energy is the economy, energy is food. You can't cut 20% from a debt-based monetary system and expect that it's going to survive. It won't. It's all coming down. It's all coming down, and it's coming down with extreme prejudice. But the good thing about all this is all the complexity, all the taxation, all the deep state, all the bureaucracy, that requires excess energy that we won't have. We don't have it, we won't have it. So at the other end of this, we're going to have a different world, where a lot of the stuff that we're railing against simply won't exist because we won't be able to afford it. We'll have to have a simpler economy and simpler societies. Now, where could I be wrong? Some sort of AI miracle, but I think the real miracle is going to be just in population reduction. And I think that's what your leaders want. And in that process that we've come to accept in terms of financial system is going to be rebuilt. And it would all be like Elon Musk said, AI might be able to replace it. It will make currency meaningless, but there will still be constraints based around energy and materials, which is so gold, silver, oil, and Bitcoin are proxies for energy and materials that you might need. They're just the liquid ones. So that's my rant. I'll drop it there and see if anyone wants to buy.
Yeah, I'll bite. I think there's plenty of energy out here. They haven't used it yet. They know about it, but it is destroying our oil-based economy. They've got energy. That's not the point that concerns me. The point is these car companies are plugging in when your car listens to you. It decides whether you can drive or not. Anybody can sit and watch you in your car. That kind of world that we might possibly stumble into. That's what worries me. And I land.
Karen, can I ask you, where's the energy coming from? Where is this energy coming from?
Just little things that I hear about the mineral. I can't remember with the anti-gravity mineral that they have. If they wanted to, they could do a lot more with solar. there's another kind of energy, where they can put in just, it starts with a T. And they say they can make them small enough to fit inside a car, very safe.
Foreign reactors. Yeah, none of this is going to arrive in time. And none of it, none of it will feed us. You know, one of the differences with the U.S. crude and distillates is that it doesn't replace helium and sulfur and nitrates. Although the U.S. has enough for itself, and Russia has fertilizer, nitrates, but they're already hoarding it for their own use. Solar panels is not going to drive our diesel. It's not going to drive our mining. It's not going to drive our farming. And neither will nuclear, actually. All of this will happen after the massive loss of life I'm talking about. They'll probably reveal that anti-gravity and and free energy, thorium, and all the fusion, all sorts of things. And it's not going to come in time because that's not how our current world is. That's for the future, and what I'm talking about is coming within the next year. Will be obvious to everyone. So that's the same that our politicians, they talk about net zero and solar and windmills, and now they're beginning to realize, hang on, we've invested all this stuff in that, but it won't keep the lorries running to deliver the food from the farms. It won't keep the mining going. We will starve long before they get the Florida up and running, even if they could start building now. So, that's my rebuttal there. Sorry, Richard.
No, it's okay. I kind of wanted to tap in. So, Dr. Paul is speaking from, Australia, guys. So, the dynamics as it relates to the Strait of Hormuz and how that is affecting energy across the world is kind of what I want to bring to the forefront, right, Dr. Paul? Because I think everybody, or most persons in the room, are kind of looking at it from the perspective of the United States, and where the U.S. is concerned with their energy policies currently at the moment, Dr. Paul, they're solid, right? And Trump just invoked the Defense Production Act last week, right? So,
I agree. I agree. I think the U.S. Will be the last man standing because you do have enough resources. But in terms of replacing the 12 million barrels a day that has been lost, and not to mention about half of Russia's refining capacity has been damaged and taken offline by attacks over the last few years. America is a net importer of crude oil, not a net exporter. It's a net exporter of distillates, which is, like I say, what was on the ships that have saved bacon until recently, and that's what's coming into the harbour in Japan. But it's not an excess of crude oil. That's the importance of the strait. Most of the seaborne crude, those 12 million barrels a day, that's 20% of global energy. Fossil energy that's been reduced 90%. So that's what I need to hear addressed. And I know Trump is talking about how we're going to export to the world. Yes, they can export their surplus refined product, but look it up. The U.S. Still is a net importer of crude.
Yeah, that may be true. I mean, I'm not even gonna dispute that right now. From what I'm seeing is that the energy sector is going through some overhauls. like that. So there's a lot of things that are going to change as it relates to the U.S. energy sector in the next few years. I mean, even recently, the start of this year, we saw Maduro got taken out. What happened? Venezuela's oil production started to go up.